Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
This is
This is
Dr.
Dr.
Vijay
Vijay
from
from
Brahma Research Foundation. I welcome the distinguished audience, the President, members of BMA, members of MSME, and citizens, a number of them very senior CEOs who are logged in. Welcome you, sir. We have organized a webinar on Indian Navy safeguarding the seas in the Indian Ocean from pirates and drone attacks, and Atmanirbharta in defense, opportunities for BMA members and LCVs. Welcome, sir. I heartily welcome the speakers of this afternoon. Rear Admiral Kunal Singh Rajkumar from the Indian Navy. Welcome, sir. Vice Admiral A.R. Karve, PBSM, AVSM, and retired defense specialist from the Indian Navy, and myself. I will briefly introduce the speakers today. First of all, Admiral Karve, sir, PBSM, AVSM, served in the Indian Army for nearly 40 years. Served in the Indian Navy for the last 40 years and retired in 2018 in the rank equivalent to the Secretary of the Government of India. He has commanded 4 frontline warships, including INS Vikrant, the aircraft carrier. He has held various posts and positions in the senior-most ranks of the Indian Navy and has wide-ranging experience and expertise in military operations, perspective planning, human resource development, training, etc. He holds various postgraduate degrees related to defense, security, and strategy from India and abroad. He takes interest in strategic matters, military industrial ecosystem. He is the patron of Maritime History Society and is serving with the Armed Forces Tribunal in the rank and status of Secretary to the Government of India and High Court Judge. Welcome to the webinar, sir. I also extend a hearty welcome to Rear Admiral Kunal Singh Rajkumar. Welcome, sir. Rear Admiral, sir, is an ex-NDA alumni of the 77th course and was commissioned in the Indian Navy on 1st of January 1991. The flag officer is an executive surface warfare officer who has served 15 years at sea, having commanded a guided missile corvette and a guided missile frigate. Amongst his important shore appointments include the Principal Director, Naval Operations, and Principal Director, Net-Centric Operations at Naval Headquarters, Directing Staff at Defense Service Staff College, Wellington, and Commodore Training at the Navy's Training Command. On promotion to the flag rank in 2002-21, he served as the Defense Intelligence Office Agency in HQIDS, New Delhi, and later as the Chief Staff Officer, Operations in the Western Naval Command, headquartered at Mumbai till Jan 24. He is presently appointed as the Flag Officer Doctrines and Concepts, wherein he leads the analysis and development of tactical warfare, operational concepts, and doctrines. Rear Admiral Rajkumar has attended Head of Department Surface Warfare course in the USA, Joint Services Command Staff course at UK, the Higher Defense Management course at Secunderabad, and the Apex Level National NDA College course at New Delhi. Welcome to the webinar, sir.
Thank you so much.
We begin the day's webinar proceedings with a presentation from you, sir, because after we announced the webinar, a unique development has taken place in the Arabian Sea, where Navy has a tremendous role to play, and Air Force also joined in. So I thought it was a curtain opener for all of us. So I welcome you and request you to throw some light on what happened in the Arabian Sea area, and how would the webinar begin with this. Thank you, sir.
Firstly, I hope I can be heard and the presentation can be seen by everyone.
We can see your presentation, sir, now.
All right, thank you so much. And can I be heard as well clearly?
Yes.
Thank you. Then I'll start.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Kiran Yadav, President of Bombay Management Association, Dr. Jayant Karkar, Executive Director, Admiral Karve sir, Dr. Vijay Page, Director, Brahma Research Foundation and moderator of the discussion today, esteemed members from the BMA who are present today. Thank you very much for the very kind and gracious opportunity given to me to speak to you on the topic today, which is on the screen. Indian Navy safeguarding the seas in the Indian Ocean from pirates and drone attacks, and Atmanirbharta in defense opportunities for BMA members. May I just request the other members to please mute the microphone because it's interfering with the presentation? Thank you so much. So I intend covering the topics under the heads that are shown on the screen. There'll be a brief introduction on which I'll cover the basics of maritime security. I'll then move on to maritime security challenges with a focus on piracy and drones. We'll cover Atmanirbharta in defense with a focus on the Navy. It's a massive subject by itself. I'll be just touching a portion of it relevant to the topic today. I will then discuss certain opportunities that I see at my level for the BMM members before concluding. So obviously, whatever is there in the presentation is purely my personal opinion. It does not reflect the Navy's official position as such. So I start with the maritime security, and the truth is that India is a maritime nation. Very recently, when the Raksha Mantri was with us, he portrayed India as an island nation having land borders. And the facts speak for themselves. 95% of India's trade by volume and over 70% by value comes from maritime transportation. India's exclusive economic zone that you see on the screen in that blue shade outside the country's borders, which measures 2.3 million square kilometers in area, which equates to about 70% of the land area of the country, is a bounty of marine life and economic wealth. 9 states that you see on the right-hand side of the screen and 4 union territories are washed by the waters of Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and the Indian Ocean. More than 200 million people are dependent on the sea for their sustenance and livelihood. Among the top 5 states of India with the highest domestic state GDP, 4 of them, the one that are showed in the red font, are coastal states. So among the top 4 GDP contributing states are these. So considering the huge role that maritime economy has in being a Viksit Bharat, which is what is the aim of the government, the Honorable Prime Minister said, and I quote, "To me, the blue wheel or chakra in a national flag represents the potential of the blue revolution or ocean economy. This is how central the ocean economy is to us." Distinguished members may also be aware of the ambitious Sagarmala project, which is about enhancing our ports efficiency and optimally exploiting our waterways. So I come to the next part. What you see on the screen right now with the red lines are basically major arteries of global shipping, what we call the international shipping lanes. If these are disrupted, the world economy will come to a halt. Certain statistics highlight the importance of the seas. With focus on the Red Sea, which is kind of flavor of the season these days, 15% of global shipping and 30% of global container traffic passes through the Red Sea, which is where the Houthis are undertaking offensive actions. India's trade via the Suez Canal, which again connects the Red Sea, was worth $200 billion, which approximates to 20% of India's trade. Most of the Russian oil, which has seen a spike in the recent months, comes via the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, which approximately is about 40% of India's oil imports. The Strait of Hormuz, which you see now, is the only route to the open ocean for over 16% of global oil production and 33% of the world's liquefied natural gas. Over 66% of oil and 50% of LNG ports in India Straits of Hormuz. Not to forget that India is 84% dependent on imports to meet its oil needs. Therefore, it is no surprise that the Indian Maritime Doctrine declares the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea, which is the western seaboard, and the others that you see, the choke points on the eastern side, being declared as the Navy's primary areas of interest. Maritime security on the western seaboard, since we are all at Mumbai, which is in the shaded area, comes under the command and control or the area of responsibility of the flag officer commanding in chief of the Western Naval Command, who is a 3-star vice admiral, just like Admiral Karve. And ships, submarines, and aircraft of this command are deployed 24/7 to monitor our seas. You would see the shaded area is quite large. It's in fact about 7 times the size of the landmass of our country, but that's the area of responsibility. To brief the members on the assets that are available with the Indian Navy to fulfill its role, the Indian Navy is arguably speaking the 5th largest Navy in the world, and it is the principal manifestation of the nation's maritime power. It comprises a wide variety of assets, which are now shown on the screen, and the members can go through that. We also have dedicated special forces, that is the Marine Commandos. We've got combat support elements like naval hydrography and oceanography. We've got clearance divers, training, administration, material maintenance, and HR all included. And what you see in the bottom is the new Nausena Bhavan, from where basically apex level administration is done. It's a spanking new building, newly inaugurated. So let's come to the maritime security challenges being faced by the Indian Navy, and they can be considered in 2 broad categories, traditional threats and non-traditional threats. So traditional threats emanate from state actors with whom we do not have good relations or adversarial relations. So coming to Pakistan Navy, it's modernizing itself pretty well despite all the political turmoil and economic upheavals that the country is facing, and it seeks to become a 50 platform force in about 10 to 15 years of time, and they are well underway. The Chinese Navy is growing at an astonishing rate, and arguably at a certain period of time was building an Indian Navy every 10 years. That's about 13 to 15 principal combatants being built every year. We are expecting the Chinese aircraft carrier task force to enter the Indian Ocean region very soon. And significantly, the pace at which China is investing in research and development and developing disruptive technology for military use is nothing less than awe-inspiring. So these include aspects like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, laser weapons, robotics, additive printing, and directed energy weapons. Please do note one important point is that the civil military liaison in China is not a liaison. It's an organizational and a national imperative. It's kind of law there. Coming to non-traditional threats, these are shown on the screen: piracy, drones, illegal fishing, drug smuggling, human trafficking, and illegal trade. We'll be focusing on piracy and drones today. So let's go to piracy. So piracy has been existing ever since man went to sea, with specific reference to our areas of interest, which I showed you. The piracy raised its ugly head in 2008, and I think in the thick of the things, Admiral Karve was there, and a lot of good points will come out from him today during Q&A. This chart, which I show you next, is are all the pirate attacks that have happened from 2008 to 2012. You would notice the large numbers from the period 2008 to 11, and then a big drop, and then it gradually flattens out. So the reason for the drop was that there was joint and coordinated deployment of the world navies. We all got together, and the Indian Navy itself played a vital part in countering this menace. So we had INS Tabar, which in November 2008 destroyed a pirate mothership. That was good, aggressive, and bold action taken by the ship. And we had then the Chinese Navy deployed in 2008. 3 ships of the Chinese Navy was deployed in the West Arabian Sea. And since then, these 3 ships have been turned around and continuously there. So at any point in time in the Indian Ocean region, we have about 6 to 7 Chinese Navy ships present at any point. So that's their kind of presence over there. So while insofar as piracy is concerned, things were returning to normal as the graph flattened out. The pirates literally said, "Picture to abhi baki hai, mere dost," and returned with a renewed sense of purpose in end of 2023. The main reason why piracy has returned with has shown resurgence at the end of 2003 is that the focus of the world and the navies all over generally shifted to other areas of conflict, namely the tensions in West Asia, the Israel-Hamas conflict, the reduced appetite of the EU and European unions in the Indian Ocean region because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the Houthis then with the Palestine cause and opening up attacks in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. It is here that the pirates sensed an excellent opportunity to return to their nefarious business. And to date, the pirate attacks since December 2023 are as shown on the screen. There are a number of alerts that happen, but we manage them pretty well in coordination with the other navies and agencies as well. So I was the Chief Staff Officer of Western Naval Command when MV Ruin, say the internet connection is unstable. Can I be heard, please? And the presentation is being seen? I was the Chief Staff Officer at WNC Western Naval Command when MV Ruin in December 23 was audaciously captured by pirates, and which was more than 500 kilometers from Somalia and mid-sea, which itself talks a lot about the ability of the pirates to go out mid-sea. At that time, we had Indian naval ship Kochi putting the pressure and trying to get the ship released. But it was a clear-cut hostage situation and our flexibility in operations were restricted. So it is remarkable that this time INS Kolkata, which is the ship that you see on the top right corner of your screen, along with handsome efforts of the C-17 Globemaster transport aircraft and INS Subhadra, brought the pirates to their knees. So that was a very good job. And here is a little video. And I'll just be covering the parts as we go along. So the ship fired warning shots in order to inflict the psychological pressure on the pirates. The pirates had put out the hostages in a line showing that they probably will get hurt, so trying to deter us. But that did not deter the naval ship. That's Kolkata that you see in the background and Ruin in the foreground. And these photographs are being taken by, videos being taken by the spotter drone. We had the C-17 of the Indian Air Force, which is a massive aircraft. And what you see is the combat expendable platform. That is the combat rubberized raiding craft, which is now you see is being pushed out of the aircraft. It will then gradually come to the surface of the water with 2 parachutes. And once it lands there, the Marine commandos who will jump off from the C-17 will then get on board the rubberized craft. Okay, they're not easy. They would then jump onto the craft and then continue with the operations. So that's the C-17 that you see circling the ship. That's the Marine commandos doing the water para jump. So all this kind of built up pressure on the ship and they finally surrendered, 35 of them. And they are now being brought to India for the necessary legal action, and the hostages were rescued. So a good point is that the jointmanship that the Navy and the Air Force had was of a very high order, and all this action unfolded more than 2,500 kilometers from the Indian coast. So truly a very, very sterling act of professionalism. In my personal opinion, piracy is likely to continue in the near future. It's not going to reach the huge levels that we saw from 2008 to 11. The counter-piracy measures are well established and centered on a very robust presence. And that's the aim of the Indian Navy right now, to continue with the robust presence with good surveillance so that you can prevent such incidents. The other point is about collaboration with other navies. And here we have what we call the Information Fusion Center of the Indian Ocean region. This is located at Gurugram. And you can see there are a number of liaison officers from other countries, which is about 12 countries right now, who are present at the IFC IOR, and they collaboratively develop the maritime picture. On the other hand, Indian Navy, being a large navy, and India as such with the government initiatives, is putting on a lot of effort and attention to capacity building and capability enhancement of smaller littoral and island nations. And just as one of the examples, there's the provision of fast attack craft to Seychelles, Mauritius, and Maldives so that they can survey their respective waters. We've recently gifted a missile corvette to Vietnam as well. We undertake coordinated patrols. We undertake exclusive economic zone surveillance in all these countries based on their request as well. So if we look at anti-piracy action, the main point is that the pirate must be convinced that adopting piracy as a profession is not worth it and he has got more to lose than to gain. And the recent actions by the Indian Navy certainly go that path and act as a solid deterrent. I now come to the threat from drones. Drones, one can say, is a common name which is given to unmanned aerial systems. But drones actually comprise the entire family, which includes the surface systems, which is called the unmanned surface vehicle, and below the surface of water as well, which is the unmanned underwater vehicle. Therefore, drones cover all three domains, that is the sea, air, and undersea. Drones have become ubiquitous as the technology that is driving the drones has become cheaper. Whatever you find on the mobile phone, GPS, radio frequency connectivity, lithium-ion batteries, accelerometers, processing power of nanoscale chips, all such systems are there on the drone, which is what makes it commercially viable and a go-to system in the military. So the drones will see an exponential growth. I would venture to say, as a very ballpark analogy, is that drones are presently in the era where the aircraft was in the first quarter of the 20th century, like those biplanes. So it's going to move exponentially in its capacity, capability, and complexity. The Russia-Ukraine war has seen drones used extensively for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. In particular, directing the artillery fire even more accurately than was ever possible. But there are drones of various sizes also that can launch lethal ordnance to kill. So there is this first pilot view drones that have been used to disable radars, vehicles, or even kill people with small shaped charges, which is no more than a few kilograms. You might also be aware of the suicide or kamikaze drones, which have been used extensively in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, also by the Houthis in Yemen, and Iran is a world leader. We'll just have a look at the first pilot view drone, which has been employed by Ukraine in a foxhole or in a place where the Russian troops were hiding. So you can see that the drone is being very, very skillfully maneuvered through the trees, through obstructions, and it's going very, very fast. These FPVs move at the speed of, racing cars at 200, 250 kilometers per hour. Incredibly precise. And he's dodging the trees as the ticker tape shows, and he's going into that hole, into that foxhole, and then exploding over there. So this quite changes the battle space, what we call the tactical battle area. And here we have an example of a suicide or a kamikaze drone, which is on the surface. So here is this vessel being employed by the Ukrainian drone developers. It is heading, as you can see in the background, towards a Russian ship. It is like a landing ship tack, a small one, being maneuvered, remote controlled, maybe having some GPS-based waypointing. It is gradually closing the ship, not gradually, actually is moving quite fast, and it appears it's not been detected by the ship at all. There's no fire coming onto this drone. It'll keep closing, and finally on impact, the video will go. So the drones are a big threat. They are something to be dealt with. And our nation is also threatened. You can recollect the Jammu Air Force Station attack in which a few people were injured. That was on 27th June. And the use of drones is extensive by both Pakistan and China. Let me be clear also over here that it's not just about the threat. The Indian Armed Forces are also using drones in offensive measure, but that's a completely separate subject and not part of today's discussion. As I told you, drones earlier can be huge. They can be like a small aircraft and can stay in the sky for 24 plus hours, up to 36 hours. And they can be no bigger than the palm of your hand. So the problem with smaller drones is one of detection to the destruction. Big drones like the Predator or the Turkish Bayraktar can be detected by the ship's radars because they have a large radar cross section. They've got a huge heat signature, rather a larger heat signature, and they can be visually sighted. But what about the small drones that you see on the right-hand side? They're very, very small. They're relatively quiet. And you see the kind of innovation that is happening in the Russia-Ukraine war. They've got cardboard airframe drones. They've got styrofoam airframe drones. Now, the detection of these is extremely difficult. So the drones pose a new and asymmetric challenge to the navies of the world. The Indian Navy is doing its bit. We are moving very, very fast to establish our systems, put our procedures in place to defeat the drone threat. And these include anti-drone systems that employ jammers and directed energy weapons. This area also offers a lot of opportunity for the industry. And there are three aspects that I'd like to share. The first one is systems that can detect and identify the small drones. The second is to develop soft kill measures. The soft kill measures are measures where you don't use lethal ordnance. So it's like disrupting the drone signal by using a jammer. And finally, you have hard kill measures, which could be microwave energy, lasers, or even normal bullets that can be rounds that can be fired to defeat the drone. So work is already apace among the armed forces to foster defense innovation and technology development and involving the private industry from the big to the small through the Ministry of Defense sponsored Innovation for Defense Excellence or IDEX initiative, which is under the aegis of the Defense Innovation Organization. Towards the final part of my presentation, I shall cover certain opportunities for industry in defense. It's a massive topic by itself, but I'll just cover a portion of it. So the Indian defense industry has massive opportunities. The prime reason, of course, that is staring in our faces is that India is itself among the largest military forces in the world. So there is a growing demand, in particular for this part of the presentation, for new and emerging technologies that could be absorbed and give us the warfighting advantage. And this is a list of just some of the items that are truly important in military technology and military prowess. Machine learning, AI, robotics, additive printing, manned and unmanned and autonomous systems, and as well as data analytics. There is also a criticism or a refrain that the defense systems are very niche and the volume of business does not augur well for continuity or profitability. But there is growing evidence and there is growing scope for dual use technology, which would benefit both commercial and defense sectors, which is including drones for many purposes, benign and otherwise, constabulary and military, counter drone measures, which I spoke of, anti-spoofing measures so that nobody hijacks your systems, artificial intelligence, data analytics, and a whole lot of traditional areas of the defense forces are, of course, always available. No longer, ladies and gentlemen, are the defense public sector units holding the monopoly. The government is extremely keen to provide a level playing field to the private industry, and in particular, micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. This is happening right now. The IDEX that I spoke of earlier is just one of the examples. On a larger note, if we come to Indian Navy and Atmanirbharta, there are opportunities in all sectors of the Navy's functioning. So we normally categorize it in three parts: to float, to move, and to fight. Because the ship has to float, it has to move, and it has to fight. And it is nice to see, heartening to note that in the to float component, we have reached 95% of self-reliance and indigenization. In the move component, we are at 60 to 65%, and in the fight component, we are at 50%. So in the move and the fight component, which covers a world of issues, there is a lot of scope for private industry involvement. Something that's close to me is data analytics, and I see in data analytics considerable scope as the Navy churns out tremendous amount of data which is amenable to analysis. One aircraft sortie at a ship deployment is tons of data which we need to work on later on. So of course this data is sensitive and classified, but there's a lot of other data in the bottom part of the screen which can be training, logistics, supply chain, HR and administration, which is often amenable and absolutely amenable to data analytics. The government has published, for the information of everyone, probably many are aware of positive indigenization list, and there are 5 such lists which are openly available on the internet for the BMM members to assess for any kind of business opportunities. And it is of course very heartening to note that the government is opening up defense sectors in the critical areas as well. And in that context, the Defense Minister, Shri Rajnath Singh, on 4th of March this year, launched what is called Acing Development of Innovative Technologies with IDEX, which is Aditi for short. It aims to promote innovation in critical and strategic defense technology, which was earlier the Holy Grail. Under this scheme, startups can receive aid of up to 25 crores for R&D, research and development, that is, and innovation. So Aditi aims to develop about 30 deep technology, critical and strategic technologies in the proposed time frame. And already a total of 17 challenges have been posed by the Army, Navy, and Air Force to the private industry. So all in all, a lot of green shoots are growing. They are just getting bigger and greener. And these are a lot of opportunities available to us. I come to the conclusion and the key takeaways that I would like to just keep in picture at the end of my presentation on safeguarding our seas from pirate and drone attacks. I'd like to reiterate the key points that the asymmetric threat from the drones is in all domains. It's surface, underwater, and airborne. And as evidenced in recent conflicts, drone warfare and tactics are evolving, and the drones themselves capability-wise are improving rapidly. And when AI comes in, it's a completely new world. The Indian Navy is well seized of this threat. Whilst we are using drones in the offensive role as well, there are actions that we can take in conjunction with the private industry to meet this threat. The threat of piracy, unfortunately, has seen a resurgence in 2023. And it is very heartening to note, very laudable, that the Indian Navy's deterrent presence has been successful and not allowed the situation to blow out of control. However, I see and I'm confident that the Indian Navy will continue to deploy very effectively to counter this menace. I lay special focus on emerging disruptive technologies, which I spoke of in the latter part, like drones, AI, data analytics, and robotics, where there's a lot of potential for private industry. And along with that, the whole of government emphasis on self-reliance has been solid. So I think there is an opportunity for all of us present over here to contribute. In the end, my view is that in uncertain times such as ours, enterprise, originality of approach, and innovativeness can yield disproportionate results. And that's where we need to go. I thank BMA once again for the opportunity to speak with the esteemed audience, and I look forward to the question and answer session and the interactions. Jai Hind, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. For a brilliant and very, very detailed presentation on the entire topic. Thanks. You have brought the fight from 2,000 kilometers into the sea to the shores and presented us. You have mentioned very, very in great details the robust presence of the Indian Navy. You have mentioned about collaboration with other countries, 12 nations collaborating with this. And you have said very clearly that drones are set for an exponential growth. Indian Navy is exerting to include them in the warfare, and it's early days for the entire drone affair. And you have brought the topic to Atmanirbharta in defense and what the Aditi initiative announces. And that brings us to the second part of the webinar, sir. And I would request Admiral Karve, sir, to take over and throw some light on the Atmanirbharta.
Good evening to everybody. And first of all, let me thank each and every one of you who have taken time off on this Friday evening I know it's a long weekend coming up, and it's heartening to see a large presence in this webinar today. We must also thank Rear Admiral Kunal Rajkumar for having so lucidly explained in a very short time the kind of operations that are going on currently in the Indian Ocean region, the Arabian Sea, Red Sea, and why maritime security is important for India. He's also spoken of the Atmanirbharta. He's given you just a taste of the concept of Atmanirbharta in defense, and what are the steps being taken, what are the technologies likely to find focus in this whole game of Atmanirbharta. So I will just lead you through some aspects of this whole concept of Atmanirbharta and why did it start and when did it start and what has happened in the last few years since this whole idea of Atmanirbharta and defense has taken root. The real reason for having given a push to this Atmanirbharta in defense production was because the Indian Armed Forces, the India, had this inglorious position of being the biggest arms importer in the world. We were heading the list for nearly 10 years. And the second biggest arms importer in the world was Saudi Arabia. Our position has now come down to number 2, but that is not a very happy situation still. And realizing that there was a financial outgo, the import of arms, including all kinds of arms. When I talk of arms, it means right from big platforms, aircraft, right down to rifles and even missiles. So financial outgo, I have some figures which I have taken from the official website for the period 2021. There was a financial outgo of nearly 50,000 crores. And earlier it was 41,200 crores in 13-14. And this kind of growing trend or increasing trend in import of arms led to the government take a decision or take measures to somehow stop this growing import and build up indigenous arms or industry capability. And that is how Atmanirbharta started in sometime in 2020 when it was articulated by the Honorable Prime Minister. And since then, gradual steps have been taken in the last 4 to 5 years. And I just want to give you a taste of what are the steps being taken. And some of the Cassandras might say this is not enough. Certainly, there's a long way to go. But the steps that have been already taken at the policy level, particularly, have been making a difference. And today, the Indian Armed Forces are increasingly looking at indigenous industry to procure most of their requirements. Of course, not all, it's not possible, but most of these. So just to give you an idea, firstly, let me start with what kind of budgetary outlay is there for the Ministry of Defense. You know, Ministry of Defense has the highest budgetary outlay of all the ministries in the government of India. Just for 2024-25, the budgetary outlay is 6.21 lakh crores. This is the highest. Of course, all of that is not for procurement. For procurement, for example, indigenized procurement of indigenizing our equipment, procuring indigenous equipment. The army, for example, from 2017 to 22 has spent 90,000 crores. In other words, 90,000 crores has been pumped into the Indian economy for procuring equipment, spares, items from Indian industry in the 5 years that I mentioned. Similarly, for Navy, 2017 to 22, 96,000 crores have been spent on procuring indigenization. These are the indigenization spends. Similarly, for the Air Force, from 2018 to 22, it is 89,000 crores. So this just gives you an idea of what is the level of expenditure by the three armed forces on procuring items from indigenous industry. Just this increase in spend, this kind of expenditure from their approved defense budget itself shows the opportunities for our industry. But like I mentioned some time back, a few minutes ago, that government has taken several steps. So what are these steps? Let me just list some of them. First and foremost is the positive indigenization list. Admiral Rajkumar talked about it. This is very important because now this is a list of equipment, sub-assemblies, line serviceable units, subsystems, components, small items, including even larger equipment like aircraft and so forth, which the armed forces now have to perforce procure from Indian industry in the next 5 years. This list, there are 5 lists have been published. Now the total items in the list exceeds 4,000 items. So this is a very good opportunity for Indian industry to say what is it that they can exploit from this, what kind of equipment, subsystems, assemblies, components, what opportunity is there? This list provides. The next thing was the budget, which I mentioned, and the Raksha Mantri has made an announcement that from this huge budget, nearly 75% of the capex which is set aside in the budget will be for indigenous industry. This is a huge amount, 75% of the capex budget. Initiative that has been taken at the policy level pertains to the Defense Research and Development Organization, premier, R&D organization of the government in the defense sector. DRDO has its own issues. It's a huge monolith, but its capacity and capability now has been further expanded, and they have been given freedom to approach industry. Earlier, it was not the case, and it was all very restricted. So today, they have taken initiatives such as IDEX, which is Innovation for Defense Excellence, which was also mentioned fleetingly by Admiral Rajkumar. And this is again an initiative to support indigenous development of certain types of technology required for defense. They also have the Technology Demonstration Fund, or TDF, and up to 50 crores can be sanctioned following due process for development of equipment for the Indian Defense Forces through the TDF, which is administered by the Defense Research and Development Organization. Then there's another initiative by DRDO, which is called the Develop Come Production Partner. In other words, the DRDO does the research work, they bring it to a prototype level, and then they identify a production partner, and then you join hands and develop that equipment, which will be procured by the armed forces. Another initiative that has been taken in the states of Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu is this announcement of the defense industrial corridors, and many concessions, benefits are being given to those industries who want to set up defense manufacturing units in these identified corridors. So that is already taken off, and at least in the UP, one hears a lot of progress has been made in the last 2 to 3 years. Another initiative that has been taken by the government is this Srijan website, which talks about the challenges of the armed forces. They give their problem statements. They've listed what are the equipment that they're looking for, specific equipment that they're looking for from Indian indigenous industry. Besides this, the government has also laid emphasis on exports of defense products. And starting from a very, very modest beginning of around 1,000 crores 4 to 5 years ago, the defense exports have risen to nearly 16,000 crores last year. Of course, these figures are very minuscule compared to what other major countries export, other major defense exporting countries. We have a long way to go, but the government has set a target of 50,000 crores in the future, I think by 2030, for achieving defense exports. All in all, the indigenization of the defense sector, the ecosystem for defense industry in India is undergoing a tremendous transformation. One has now, I've served nearly 40 years, and one has not seen this kind of push from the top level, policy level, at the state government level. I mentioned UP, and many other states, including Maharashtra, they have come out with a policy on defense production and defense industry. And many things are happening. Startups, for example, they are being encouraged, and there are several initiatives being taken, and funding is being provided by the government, by the armed forces, for hand-holding of startups, so that they can develop some cutting edge and niche technologies which are urgently required by the government. There is also the strategic partnership model. So the list is endless. In short, I just want to say that as far as the defense industrial ecosystem is concerned in the country, we are going to see very big steps being taken in future, policy level steps. And this convinces me that there are enormous opportunities for those who wish to enter into this sector. One can go on and on. One can give examples of so many small players who were very small in this whole system just a few years ago, but have now leapfrogged because they have been able to meet the needs and requirements of the Indian armed forces. And we in the armed forces are, I think, very confident that Indian industry can indeed come forward and step up and come up to the requirements of the military. Yes, there are certain challenges. Those challenges will remain. For example, industry always wants to be certain that they will definitely get orders, and they want to be certain that there are economies of scale and that they continue to get orders, because after all, industry is going to make capital intensive investments for production and manufacture of these items. So these aspects have been addressed to some extent in the policies that I mentioned. But there are ways and means to enter into the defense sector despite these challenges. And along with Dr. Page, who's here, he's the founder of the Brahma Research Foundation, in order to explain in greater detail what are these opportunities, because today we have just been able to touch the surface of this whole gamut of indigenous defense industry. We plan to organize a full-fledged workshop for those who may be interested, and depending on the response, to educate the members on what are the various initiatives being taken, how they can benefit. We plan to have a workshop with concerned speakers from the military, from the DRDO, from already industry who is already established, etc. So I think with that note, I will end my intervention, and I thank all of you very much for attending this webinar today, and especially my thanks to Rear Admiral Rajkumar for his very lucid talk and setting the pace for today's discussion. Now over to Dr. Page.
Thank you, sir. Very kind of you to have thrown an overview of what Atmanirbharta is about and what steps government has taken, including the Indian Navy, to move in that direction. And I would say that the entire scenario looks very challenging and interesting. And as you said, this is early days for the Aditi policies also. But we will have to make a structured effort to approach this, and industry would be welcome to, to take the first step And also we have to work with industry to make this happen. But before I say anything further, Admiral Rajkumar sir, there are some questions. So one question which has come, which I will just read out. And this is from one of the distinguished members who has said that what could be the impact of volatile scenario in the IOR region on the future of our national security framework? Over to you, sir.
So I think that's a massive question.
Well,
I wonder whether it's really volatile. We know the Red Sea is under some kind of pressure, but the volatility, to my mind, I may not give a very accurate answer. The concern for national security, there is of course external threats that I've spoken about. But when we talk about the Indian Ocean region and keeping in context of what we've discussed today, it's the failed and the failing states. Wherever there is a failed state, you look at Sudan, it was festering with trouble for about a year and a half. And suddenly last year in April, we had the fight between the two big people in Sudan. I'm forgetting the names right now, the two generals. And we had to immediately push in our ships to move the people out. You look at Somalia, it's always been a case of poor governance. The roots of piracy are not at sea, they are on land. Likewise, if you look at Mozambique, the Cabo Delgado region, which is very rich in oil, and we've got a stake there in NGC, I think, a stake there. And there is a whole lot of activity going on there as well. So the volatility comes from poor governance in these areas. Our job in the Indian Navy is not to allow it to come close to India. We've got to address these issues as soon as we can, as far away from our coast. And it is here a very important role that the government does, is not just the military, but the diplomatic role, which is where partnerships, collaborations all come into play. And I'll stick to what Indian Navy does. So we have a lot of foreign cooperation. I talked about capacity building, capability enhancement, in order to allow the nations which are not as robust as us or don't have the capabilities as us to come up to a certain level. In fact, it all starts with the entire government approach. The Prime Minister has spoken of Sagar, security and growth for all. He's been telling everybody since Shangri-La Dialogue in 2018 and well before that we all have to be together, collaborate, have free and open Indian Ocean, have connectivity. So all these are the right things that we are looking at. So in a way, that's my answer. It's a little broad answer, but we look at it at this particular perspective. Anything from Admiral, sir?
Yeah, so as he has rightly pointed out, this Indian Ocean region is a region of instability. If you see the literal countries in Africa, in our neighborhood, whether to the east, whether to the west, whether to the south, the island nation, these nations are not well governed. And much of this ill governance or mal-governance, the problems arising from that on land, they spill over into the sea. Now, just to give an example, another example, besides piracy, the drug smuggling. One of the biggest drug smuggling, one of the biggest operations, anti-drug smuggling operations, were successfully conducted just last year, where the combined operations of the Navy and the Intelligence Bureau and the Coast Guard, we have stopped a boat, and I think the value of those the cargo of the drug cargo it was carrying ran into some 30,000 crores in the Indian market. That was one of the biggest operations. You can imagine what people are trying to do to wreck the social fabric of this country by using drugs, for example. So there are many challenges. Drug running is there, arms, illegal.
Sir, you need to unmute yourself.
Good evening.
Karve sir, you need to unmute yourself.
have to speak.
Sir, one other issue that you had raised that point that the disturbance on the land.
Sorry for my
And
interruption.
it is reflected in the disturbances at sea. The question that I would like to raise here is you must have seen the US Navy and the British and all the NATO countries attacking the bases of Houthis on land and hoping that that would curb the situation. Because Somalia is such a long historical past that they have been doing it. Are there such other options open as members, member countries like those a dozen countries which are suffering from this to take care of what happens in the land as well? Something that the Americans are doing it. Is that the answer?
I think it's quite a difficult thing to answer. It's not really, I would say yes. I would say yes, from whatever wider reading I've done. The problem in Yemen is also not very new. It goes back to 2013-14, and it's been going on since then. And we know there are external state players that are allying with certain factions over there. And we know Saudi Arabia is involved, we know Iran is involved. Of course, they have their national imperatives, which we are not interfering with. But to solve the problem in Yemen, Somalia or Sudan, it has to come from within the region. I mean, that's a clear yes. So how long will this take? It's a matter of concern. I'm sure at the government level, there are a number of actions being taken by MEA to ensure that there is some level of stability that is brought to this area. But as of now, nothing seems to be coming out from the open source that the situation in Yemen is heading towards some level of stability. That is insofar as Houthis is concerned. They have had a truce a year and a half back. The factions have stopped fighting. But with the Israel-Hamas war, again, a festering fissure has opened up again. And look at the kind of capability they're bringing forth. They've got missiles, anti-ship missiles. They've got short-range ballistic missiles. They've got drones. They've got the work. But this has to be sorted out through consensus building, through an effort by the government. The Navy will deal with the symptoms of it mostly.
Thanks, sir. I would like to ask a question. If Commander Vadera wanted to ask, would you ask him? He can put in his question. It's open.
May I request Commander Vadera to please ask his question?
Yeah. Good evening, Admiral Karve.
Sir, your mic is muted. I think you'll have to.
Oh, no, I can unmute it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Commander Vadera, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good evening, Dr. Bage, Admiral Karve, and Admiral Rajkumar. My question is that artificial intelligence and this latest technology being used by the pirates to start with, the drone, attacking in unconventional way in the mid-ocean, using helicopters to land the pirates, and we replying them in a Balwan style, which the day it happened and we saw it on the TV, my chest swelled by not inches, by 4 meters. It's a matter of great pride. So what is the capability of our adversaries, Pakistan and China, in terms of using this drone technology? The way we are going full speed ahead, what are their, how are they placed vis-a-vis India? Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your question. We may mute the other mic because it's echoing. So the technology that is being used in open sea, and the point that Commander Vadera brought out is that it was astonishing to see that a drone had come from somewhere. And it fetched up almost 400 nautical miles just beyond our exclusive economic zone of the west coast of India. How was that drone guided over thousands of kilometers to come and impact on a ship, on a merchant ship or near a ship? Speaks of the level of complexity or technology that has been mastered by certain maybe non-state actors. We don't know the origin of it. There's been some background work done on it through analysis of the material, etc., but I can't get into it. So it's certainly a threat. And that's why I was telling you that the drone threat is huge. There is, of course, a debate whether it's a revolution or whether it's an evolution, but it is seeing a lot of improvement. Now, insofar as capability of adversaries are concerned, any professional military will latch onto it. Any professional military will want to see how we can utilize it. If you look at Pakistan, you have to hyphenate Pakistan with China. Their collusion is a given. There have been books written on it. We know for one that it happens. China is a world leader in drone technology. That is an established fact. They are world leaders in all types of drones, whether it is unmanned aerial vehicles which fly at 25, 30,000 feet for 36 hours, strapped with ammunition and weapons, whether it is smaller drones that we are seeing. We know that the PLA Navy ships in Indian Ocean region deploy these drones extensively to monitor for surveillance and reconnaissance. Pakistan has inventory of unmanned aerial vehicles from China, which is the Wingloom series. They are also entered into an agreement with Turkey, and they have already been provided the Turkish-made Bayraktar, which made a lot of news in the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea, rather the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia, and of course the Armenia-Azerbaijan war. Interesting aside to that is that all the TB2s, Bayraktar, were shot out of the sky by the Russians. It's a cat and mouse game. So they brought Bayraktar to the table and the Russians brought their electronic warfare systems to the place. And no longer these Bayraktars fly in the Russian-Ukraine conflict or over the Ukrainian landmass. The threat, however, remains of the small drones, which are very, very difficult. So the capabilities of the adversary is there. It's a given. We have seen them operating these drones in a professional manner. They are there when our ships deploy. We know that Pakistan Navy utilizes them well. We know that Pakistan Armed Forces and elements from their side deploy drones, and these are being shot down across the line of control and the IB on a regular basis. We know for one that in the northern borders, north of us, the PLA, that is the People's Liberation Army Air Force, has a number of unmanned aerial vehicles, which aircraft that they use with their Air Force. Their unmanned teaming is also progressing very well, and that's why this competition is on. This competition is on, and we would need to up the ante and just keep at it continuously. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well answered. Thank you, Admiral Rajkumar.
Again, sir, I think Mr. Harish Prabhu has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, can I ask, or I've already actually put it on the... Anyway, this is to Admiral Karve. Apart from the manufacturing sector, which you so lucidly illustrated that, there is much more effort on making the defense establishment much more Atmanirbharta on the manufacturing side. What is your view on the services, and especially given the, latest, I mean, the world of the wars are going to be fought on software, networks, etc. and all. How do we actually secure the defense establishment from an infrastructure network perspective and all? And is that a fair question that I'm asking?
No, you'll have to keep your this speaker on.
I've muted.
Yeah, your speaker. Yes, it's picking up. Your speaker is picking up. No. Okay.
Sorry, was my question clear or?
Yes, I got the latter part of your question, but I've got the gist of what your question is. It's about how the armed forces, the military, they keep their networks secure from external cyber attacks. I think that is perhaps what you are trying to ask.
Making the to a large extent, a lot of these technology, software, infrastructure and all is largely sort of foreign, right? So if we were to make it more Atmanirbhar, I guess that, we can not only make it more reliable, but also more secure. This is my.
That's true. So there are two parts. I mean, I will answer your question in two ways, two parts. One is, of course, the armed forces, the entire from north to south, east to west, and even abroad, we are connected through the internet channels. And how do we keep our systems and how do we keep our networks from being from offensive attacks, from intrusions from outside parties? And one of the best ways to do that is, and what we do is to isolate our internal networks from the external internet by means of an air gap. Our internal networks are not connected to the internet at all, but yet that connection is a one-way connection. And I'll just give an example. Admiral Rajkumar talked about the Information Fusion Center in Gurgaon, which is which sort of is a collaborative effort of so many countries. And the picture, what emerges is the common operational plot or a picture of the entire all oceans across the world. And this information is fused together by getting information from different regions of the world. So when this information comes into our system, our information does not go to them. We can get their information, but our information does not go by means of a technology. There's a special technology which has been developed in-house by the Indian Navy, which prevents our network information from our networks from going across. That is one way. The second thing is your point was, if we import so much of software, so many equipment, weapon, platform, systems, obviously they all come with embedded software. For example, we buy the Rafale aircraft. It is all fly-by-wire system that has its own software. So as far as those systems are concerned, yes, there is, and that is why we want to do away with this dependency on import for all these systems and equipments and platforms which are so critical for our defense. As of now, imported equipment with imported software will be vulnerable to some extent, and that is one of the drivers for indigenizing our own systems, our own platforms, our own aircraft, own ships to the extent possible. And until it is developed in country and driven by software developed in country, these challenges will remain. But as I said, over the years, hopefully Indian industry steps forward and starts providing the armed forces with these kind of systems.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have a small question now that Admiral, sir, both of you have mentioned and highlighted the importance of Atmanirbhar and seriousness of the forces and the government to go ahead with it. So my question would be, what are the first steps that the industry would like to take and know from you? So how do they take the first step, approach that? One suggestion that I have, and you can explore it further, sir, is that they can write to BMA. We have a facility here. They can write to BMA. So whenever we are holding that regular workshop that you mentioned, and both of you are most honorably requested to join that workshop that happens. Write to us about your specific problems, about areas that they would like to explore. Now that you have explained the drone technology, its reach, and that is very much at the initial stage of defense services. What would they like to know? What would the questions that they have as to how the services can be approached, Army, Navy, Air Force, and that could be a beginning. Anything else would you suggest, both of you, sir, as to what the first steps should the industry take now?
I just, as in the background, I was just doing some work because I knew a question of this nature was likely to come. I am not an expert in procurements. I've not done that job, but I know for one that there is a Navy interacts with the industry on the CII Hive platform. So where we bring out, so one is that Navy can approach BMA, but Navy wants to approach everyone about problems it is facing. And as Admiral Karve said, The indigenization on the Navy, I've never seen it, just as he's been bringing out. I've never seen pulling out all the stops, and we are making products for nuclear submarines, which are being indigenized. We are making indigenized products for MiG-29K, which is the fighter on board Vikramaditya. For Vikramaditya itself, there is an indigenization list. So it's just staggering to see the way the government is opening up this part. So one is this monthly interaction that the Navy has with CII on the CII Hive platform. There are a lot of exhibitions that I think the CII hosts, where again the Navy people come and they say that these are our requirements, so that the information is spread out. We have the Defense Expo, which happened in Gandhinagar in 2022. Again, a wonderful opportunity for the industry to understand. There is a Swawalamban document that has been published a couple of years ago, which brings out all the minor system, like the Admiral was talking about, even fire pump motors or small connectors. All this is there in the document. So I think a lot of it I could see is there in the open source, which could be utilized also by the BMA members who are over here to just have a look at it and probably go through them. So what I did in my presentation, the link to those sites was there, but just a simple internet search will say. And I will take this point back with me to Western Naval Command, that if we have a problem within the command, at least we can immediately write to BMA and we should be able to establish means of communication to resolve that problem. Thank you.
Okay, so to take this point forward, as far as industry and how does industry enter into the defense ecosystem, defense industrial ecosystem, there are two ways to look at it. There are some industries who are already players in this, and some of you who, or some industry MSME who is not yet into the sector. So there are two distinct players in this, that those who are already present and those who wish to enter, and their problems and issues are completely different. Now, talking of those who are not present in this sector and who wish to explore the opportunities, yes, it requires a lot of hand-holding. It is a very complicated system as to how to enter into the defense sector. He talked of CII, and so now every association also has its own sort of interface with the military. But at the apex level, you have something called the SIDM. It is a Society for Indian Defense Industry. This is headquartered in Delhi, and the aim of SIDM is exactly this: is to how to handhold or how to educate basically MSMEs who wish to enter into the defense sector. But that apart, this whole subject is a very wide topic, and we wish to, those who wish to have something more on this, want to learn something more about this, we would encourage you to send your questions, your questionnaire to BMA with some specific questions about this whole issue, and we will be very happy to take them on. And to address those, we will definitely organize a workshop. And in that workshop, we intend to invite all the concerned relevant speakers. For example, from the Defense Public Sector Unit, perhaps somebody from Mazgaon Dock Limited, perhaps somebody from Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, somebody from the DRDO, all senior people, somebody from the ISRO. So once speakers from these government institutions, industry, even from the private industry like Larsen and Toubro, they will be able to share their experiences with members of the BMA and bring out the issues that people would likely to face, and what are the opportunities and how they can be of help to you. Just to give an example, the defense industry in India today works on the model of a lead integrator, with MSMEs being the suppliers to the lead integrator. For example, the Mazgaon Dock Limited builds warships for the Indian Navy, as was mentioned by Admiral Rajkumar, the float to move to fight component. All these components partly are supplied by the Indian industry, but they're supplied to the shipbuilder. and the shipbuilder places orders on MSMEs. And to build a ship, you need all kinds of systems, pipes, valves, connectors, cables, joints, you name it. And from small sub-assemblies right up to big major equipment like diesel alternators and pumps and weapon systems, radars, communications. So a ship is an integration of all this put together. And MSMEs are increasingly looking for opportunities as to how to become a supplier for the lead integrator. Similarly, Larsen and Toubro is a lead, and it's a major private sector player in the defense industry. They are the ones who are making big components for the nuclear submarine program. Our nuclear submarine program also has a very well established indigenous supply base. So the system in our country is developed, but not fully developed. And there are opportunities for more players to enter into this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I conclude, I would heartily thank both of you. Kiranji, would like to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Page sir. I think it's been a wonderful session. Thank you, Vice Admiral Karve sir and Rear Admiral Kunal Singh Rajkumar sir for explaining in a very simplistic way the challenges that lie along our coastal line, and also to be able to make us aware that what really are the challenges and threats which we need to be in understanding of. I think while it's a very, a little disheartening to note that there's so much things happening at the sea, and none of us actually were aware of this earlier to a great extent. I think it's very heartening to see that what has happened in December 2023 and 16th of March is something that, as Commander Vadera said, makes us proud of you gentlemen who are there, that actually give us a real sense of being safe. So first of all, I would like to thank you for keeping us safe, and considering the fact that now with the multiple challenges that come out with technology and other factors, I think this game is going to get more and more complex. For the members who are here and the BMA members in general, we would definitely like to advise everyone that BMA Brahma Foundation have and the esteemed speakers that are present today, we have decided that we will try and come out with workshops and programs that will actually take you from the basics of being able to enter into this industry, do your business, because I know that there's a whole lot of curiosity, but at the same time, there's a whole lot of apprehension when it comes to dealing with the government and other factors. But I'm sure that from what you've seen and what you've heard, there's going to be enormous amount of opportunity for those who are able to fit into the groove of the smallest things, especially our MSMEs. So yes, a basic workshop on the understanding is definitely on the cards. And as Vice Admiral Karve put it, if you share your questions and your aspirations with the BMA office, we'll be happy to collate that, and along with Brahma Foundation and Dr. Page, we'll work out sessions that will be fully meaningful and directed at helping you enter this sector and to be able to smoothen your ride. So the whole idea is for BMA to facilitate the process. And I'm sure we are a little behind in terms of what the Navy has been doing with CII, but I'm sure we'll be able to take this opportunity, and happy for BMA to be facilitating the connect. Also, I think within the Brahma Foundation and its associates, there is ample amount of expertise to be able to guide members who wish to enter this sector at the preliminary stage. And I'm sure that this hand-holding will help you overcome your anxieties and your unanswered questions in terms of how do I go about it, what are the next steps that I need to take, and what will be the risk that is associated with it. So I think with these words, sir, I would like to hand it over back to our moderator, Dr. Page, and both our eminent speakers. Thank you so much, and we will definitely come back to you with questions and work. Not just questions, but work as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kiran sir. And on behalf of Brahma Research Foundation, I assure the BMA that we shall work together and ensure that with help from eminent experts, Admiral Rajkumar sir here, Admiral Karve sir here, and our associates, develop a platform where the questions can be answered and we can provide some meaningful help. I am very grateful to both of them for having shared their ideas. And as I said, this is just the beginning. And we end this presentation with a salute to the naval officers who have been at the sea, defending the borders, all these, and especially the fantastic rescue without firing a bullet. They fired the bullet and you just saw to it that they are brought unscathed, unlike sinking, which would have been very simple to do, but we would have lost a great deal. So that's off, sir. Our compliments, and thank you very much for sharing your valuable time. The date of the workshop in connection with BMA and others will announce at mutual comfort level. And as you said, the agencies listed and mentioned by you, wonderful to have them here, and we will take the thing forward, sir. So the Sharnovaruna, we salute the Navy and the forces here. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you to having attended the program, and we will be with you, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.